A very good morning to all of those joining us for today's media briefing. To all our media colleagues online, very warm welcome to you. Thank you for joining us, where Premier Alan Winde and the Provincial Minister of Finance and Economic Opportunities, Ms. Murray Wenger, will expand and give a bit more detail this morning on the Minister's important announcement that she made earlier this morning of the 2020 budget in the Western Cape Parliament. Before we get into the business end of the briefing, please keep your microphones and cameras off, those who are joining us online for today's briefing, until we reach the question answer component of proceedings, and I'll obviously indicate at what point we will open the floor to questions. I'll now like to hand over to Premier Winde. Very good morning to you, Premier.
Good morning. Thank you very much, and a good morning to members of the media and, of course, the citizens of the Western Cape. We are coming to you directly post the Minister Wenger, sitting next to me, tabling of the medium-term budget policy statement, as you heard. But a key announcement in the speech that was made was our declaration of a dispute with the national government. This declaration is a formal intergovernmental dispute, and it's in terms of section 41 and 42 of the intergovernmental Quite frankly, what we want is our 1.1 billion shortfall that they have cut from us in year post an agreed budget, and now because of really bad national government policy and because of I think in bad faith negotiation around unaffordable wage increases, we as a province now have to bear the brunt. And so this dispute has been declared, and it's not as if we've taken this lightly or we've just jumped into it. We've got the full record of all of our letters, all of our disagreement with processes, and quite frankly, and behind me, I also have members of the Cabinet, specifically the expanded budget policy team, but also other members of the Cabinet online, because every single department is affected by these cuts. And at the end of the day, the citizen, you, the citizen, are severely affected by these cuts. And we, as a provincial government, are going to be fighting for you to make sure that we get our fair share, or should I rather put it, your fair share of this budget. I think we have for many years in this province shown that we are responsible. We have the lowest by far cost of employment to service delivery ratio in the country. We have for years made sure that we've spent money wisely, that we have not overstretched our COE budget at the detriment to services to our citizens. And quite frankly, what's happening here is our education system, our health system, our frontline services in social development, across the board, our ability to deliver on the infrastructure that we so desperately need is severely impacted because of these budget decisions. And all we really want is a fair allocation. I think the census has shown that this province is growing exponentially. Citizens are moving here from across the country to get services in this province because of failure in other provinces. And quite frankly, the funds are not following the citizens. And so we have a 1.1 billion rand shortfall in the wage agreement. That's excluding the impact of what's happening into the outer years. But this is why we are now declaring this intergovernmental dispute. We need to make sure that, and we are showing you that we are fighting for you, the citizens. We want to resolve this. We want to resolve this by engaging. I think the Minister has said in her speeches and in the speech today in the House, and you can see it in our documentation, we might get we have received your letter, but that's all we get. We are demanding that we have an interaction, and if we don't have that interaction, we will see you in court. we need to make sure that we get this sorted out as quickly as possible. I also want to say that I hope that the other provinces are also going to join us in this kind of action, because it's the citizens that are actually losing out. And every time we have to implement these kinds of cuts, we can only take it away from frontline services. That is totally unacceptable. And we've got to make sure that we as a government are delivering on those services despite these pressures. And we've been, as I said, we've got record of every single one of these letters. And it starts off in 2018 with court cases in 2018 where actually the wage agreement was withdrawn. But then if I have a look from 2020 onwards, and the number of requests for Cabinet Lekgotla meetings to deal with the upcoming wage dispute and the financial distress that South Africa is finding itself in. I think of the ICC, the PCC meetings, and we've asked for the agenda to be changed, and that also being ignored. And of course, a full record of all of the intergovernmental meetings at a budget and finance side, or administration with the head of Treasury here as well. So with those few words, I'm going to hand over to the Minister. And yeah, this is the declaration, and we will be fighting for you to get the correct budget allocation so we can give you the services you deserve.
Thank you, Premier. Maybe just to add that wage negotiations will always mainly affect provinces because the majority of civil servants are employed by provinces. And this is because of our constitutional mandates of health and education and social development, which is by its very nature human resource intensive. We're talking doctors, nurses, teachers, and social workers. So through this action of declaring this intergovernmental dispute, we are trying to avoid dramatic reductions in service delivery spending in order to cater for the wage liability. The national government concluded the wage deal after our budgets for the year were passed. The outcome of the wage deal and the increases were, however, implemented centrally on the payroll system. So provinces were incurring this expenditure with no certainty on how this will be funded. These expenditures are additional to past budgets and therefore are unbudgeted and growing every month. We were forced to proceed on trust that funding support will be received from the national fiscus. The Constitution requires stable and predictable allocations of revenue shares, but this is not what has happened in year. At the 11th hour, National has only committed to funding 78% of the health and education wage liability, and we've been left to carry the can with a significant 1.1 billion rand shortfall. It is our view, and has always been our position, that the wage liability should be fully funded through allocations to provinces. The Western Cape government is committed to effective and sustainable management of the overall public service wage bill, but I formally raised concerns about the funding of the wage agreement, particularly in the short term, as far back as April 2023. Both the Premier and myself have repeatedly raised concerns with the national government over many months. The Western Cape government continues with our established practice of exercising absolute prudence around compensation of employees, and that our COE as a percentage of budget amounts to approximately 52% of our expenditures, which is the lowest of all provinces. This is the result of the sustained enforcement of compensation ceilings and emphasis of headcount management in the Western Cape. Should there be no resolution to the issue, we will face immediate impact on frontline service delivery and our constitutional responsibilities, as the Western Cape government has little room to cover these funding shortfalls. Provincial governments are people intensive. We rely on our teachers, on our nurses, and on our social workers to deliver basic services to millions of citizens every day, and with a growing population, and to respond to overwhelming pressure on our services. At the same time, any funding shift away from infrastructure will have a devastating effect on basic service delivery, the construction industry, and economic growth and job creation. There's also similarly no scope to reduce transfer payments to our service delivery partners who are already at breaking point. We simply can't divert funding away from maternal, child and infant healthcare. We can't turn funding away from antenatal care. We can't turn funding away from tuberculosis treatment and basic medical care. We also can't reduce transfers to non-profit institutions for community-based care, home-based care, mental health services, chronic care, HIV and AIDS adherence support. These MPIs reach services reach more than 7 million contacts, and within the social development sector, our non-profit organizations are also at breaking point. And so through a Herculean effort to avoid the impact on service delivery, we have engaged extensively with the national government to avoid this situation and with no relief. And for this reason, we've taken the difficult but necessary step of declaring an intergovernmental dispute. Our message is clear: fund the wage liability in year, or we will take this to the courts.
Thank you, Minister. Plain and simple.
Thank you, Minister. Thank you, Premier, for that. We'll now open the floor to questions from the media. You can do so by raising your hand, so to speak, through the Teams platform. You can also, if you prefer, to type your questions in the chat box or the Q&A section of the Teams. You can do so as well. I'm also watching my phone very carefully. WhatsApp, you can send those questions to me via WhatsApp as well. So we'll open the floor. I do note that there have been a few questions already, and I think it's just apt that the first question that has come through, directed towards both the Premier and Mr. Wenger, speaks to what exactly is an intergovernmental dispute. If you could maybe just, as simplistically as possible, in layman's terms, unpack what exactly this dispute entails and what this means. Maybe, Premier, you can start it. Well, thank you.
Thank you, Regan, and thanks for that question. So I think before you go to court, you have to, at least within government, show that you've tried to resolve the issue. That's why I've referred a few times to the number of engagements and letters that we have written between provincial government and national government around this issue. But this is a formal process within the regulatory environment that says we are now officially declaring this dispute. We've actually put the national government on terms to say that we need to have our engagement before the 6th of December. Otherwise, we will end up in court to solve this issue. And of course, you can't just declare we want to go to court. You must be able to show through the intergovernmental processes that you've engaged. So I think I refer to the number of letters, but I think primarily we've already said we have given them notice that we are intending to declare a dispute. And then we followed up and said, we have not heard back from you on that intention to declare that dispute. And now we are declaring dispute with a time frame, because as government spheres, you also need to be able to try to interact. You need to show that you've followed that process, but we have not had any joy. And now, following through on that piece of regulation, we now will give notice and then go to court. I just want to add to that.
I think, Premier, you've put it very well. It's very simply a framework to provide a forum and a mechanism to facilitate the settlement of intergovernmental disputes.
Follow-up question via WhatsApp, and I think this is mostly directed towards you, Premier, but once again, Minister, if you do want to weigh in, you're welcome to do so. As being asked yet, you've tabled these budget issues and these concerns with the President at the President's Coordination Council. I think that was an all
of the PCCs as well as the Lekgotla. They were never really formally put on the agenda, except the last PCC that I attended What was the trigger to get a discussion on it was the outgoing then head of Treasury, who'd written a letter, and in actual fact, they withdrew the letter or indicated withdrawal of the letter, but we at least had a part of a discussion. But we've never had any real formal engagement backwards and forwards other than that one discussion. The rest have not been enabling for this discussion. And of course, as time goes on, we would get also different mechanisms of communication through the formal channels of administrative engagement with Treasury and political engagement with Treasury. But at the PCC and the Lekgotla level, a high level engagement on one occasion triggered by a letter indicating that there would need to be strict cuts by the outgoing then head of Treasury, but then it was actually ignored and withdrawn. So that was actually not really helping the process at all. And other than that, no real formal reversion to us or to me via those platforms. I don't know, Minister, if you want to just add on some of your engagements through the Budget Council.
Thank you. Yes, so I have raised this issue repeatedly through intergovernmental fora such as the Budget Council, as well as in writing, and our concerns have not been substantively addressed, which is why we've taken this step.
There's just a point of clarity that's being asked here. You intend to declare the dispute, question mark. Have you filed any court papers as yet?
Okay, so court papers don't follow through. We gave an intent to declare. That was the first letter that was sent, saying that we are intending to declare. So this was the letter of the 15th of November. Request for formal intergovernmental engagement in terms of the same section of the same piece of regulation. So we gave intention and we wanted an engagement. We then followed that up on the 22nd of November. Again, request for formal intergovernmental engagement because we had not received any feedback. And then this document that was sent yesterday says it is now declaration of this formal intergovernmental dispute. So we have now declared it, and the time frame is between now and the 6th of December. And only then, if nothing happens between those 2 dates, 27th November and 6th December, then court papers will be prepared.
Thank you, Premier. The following question, I think you have in part answered it, but worth reflecting it once again. Yeah, it's being asked on WhatsApp. Do you think if you don't get that meeting, that engagement this year, that you'll be in court before the year ends or early next year?
Obviously, we will put as much urgency on as we can.
Another question, beg your pardon, to both the Minister and the Premier. You have indicated that you would like other provincial governments to maybe follow suit as well. This is not just a matter that is affecting the Western Cape. Obviously, all other provinces will be facing the same kind of consequences. Do you have any faith, or do you believe there will be any kind of follow through from other provinces who will maybe want to also maybe not jump on our bandwagon, but they want to, in their own ways, take this matter to national government and raise their concerns in a more intensified manner?
So I've had no indication, but if we are in a position that we're in, and the frontline services under such pressure, especially health, especially education, especially social development, with a 52% COE to budget ratio, I can only imagine that the other provinces, which have far higher ratios, that this is absolutely devastating for them and their ability to offer services in those specific areas to their citizens. So, I'm pretty certain, they will be watching this very, very carefully, but I've had no indication. I'm not sure if you have.
Then another point of clarity being asked to who was the document sent yesterday to declare the dispute?
So it's sent to Minister Godongwana and Minister Kivit, and then copied to the President.
Thank you. I'm going to just leave it open for a few more seconds or even a minute for any other follow-up questions to those joining us online. If you've got any further questions to that, you've got a slight window that is closing quite rapidly at this Digicon. You could also contact us offline once we wrap up at the Digicon for further details. And of course, there will be a statement issued. Yeah, somebody's just before the deadline for the Digicon. Do you believe the dispute will be successful? And why or why not?
So I'm going to say yes, we don't enter into these kind of disputes lightly. I think we've done our homework. And you cannot, quite frankly, in a mid-year, I think as the Minister pointed out in the House now, mid-year come with we have an agreed budget in March for starting in April, and then actually slash that budget. You can just imagine the implications from a contractual point of view, from trying to get delivery with infrastructure, etc. These things take a long time. You employ people, etc. You cannot in mid-year, and I think that gives us the grounds for this dispute, and it's not as if it's not been done before, and we actually saw in 2018 reversal. So I'm pretty confident.
And with that, I think we've reached the end of the media briefing. Maybe just Premier or Minister, if you'd just like to any concluding remarks you'd like to offer, Premier.
I'm going to say give us our 1.1 billion or we'll see you in court.
And with those strong words, it brings to the end the media briefing. As I said earlier, we will be issuing a joint statement in due course with more details on what emerged at the press conference. Thank you to all those who joined us this morning, and I hope you have a good day. Thank you very much.